And then there were four teams who traveled very different journeys to get to the college football playoff for a shot at the national championship. In the Fiesta Bowl, it's the undefeated Michigan Wolverines against the upstart TCU Horned Frogs. And for Jim Harbaugh, it's not only a chance to win his first title as a head coach, but to bring one home to his alma mater for the first time in a quarter century.
We're excited for the challenge to advance and to see how we'll stack up in the playoffs.
For TCU, being the underdog is nothing new. In fact, it's something they embrace. And if you happen to be holding a ticket before the season kicked off of TCU winning it all, around 230 to 1. And make no mistake, the Horned Frogs are not here to take part. They're here to take over.
Our guys, they don't want anything given to them. They want to earn it.
In the Peach Bowl, the undefeated Georgia Bulldogs are steamrolling towards being the next dynasty in college football. Even after losing a record amount of talent to the NFL draft from last season's national championship team, they still boast a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense.
But it should be an electric matchup, electric atmosphere. It's really what college football is all about. These kids having an opportunity to play in a game like this.
As for their opponent, Ohio State will have to pick themselves off the mat after an embarrassing defeat to their arch rivals at the Shoe. It'll be the third playoff appearance in the past 4 seasons for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, but they'll need to execute at a near perfect level to knock off the reigning champions.
How we got here at this point, I guess, doesn't really matter. Now that we're here, it's time to go play.
As 2022 comes to a close, college football immortality awaits. Will the favorites move one step closer towards making history? Or is there perhaps an upset brewing? It's winning time on New Year's Eve.
Here we go. 8 p.m. Eastern, New Year's Eve in Atlanta. Number 1, Georgia. Number 4, Ohio State. It's the Peach Bowl. Buckeyes, they are the interlopers, blown out by Michigan at home the last time we saw them. Georgia, a strong betting favorites to become the first repeat national champ since Bama a decade ago. It's the nightcap of the college football playoff semifinals, and in some ways, it's the main event. Time now for winning ingredients delivered by Papa John's, and we say hello to Barrett Sallee, who joins us from Atlanta in the shadow of the Bends. And Barrett, the Bulldogs would seem to have all the momentum here. It's pretty much a home game for them there. What's it going to take for the Buckeyes to pull an upset?
Well, I think for Ohio State, they needed to do the exact opposite of what they did last time out in the secondary, and that's give up big plays. Last time we saw this Ohio State defense, they were letting J.J. McCarthy throw all over them, and that's just something that they cannot allow, because right now, the big plays, and Ryan Day's been talking about explosive plays essentially all week, and I think when you look back at that Ohio State-Michigan game, they gave up big plays after some risks were taken. So they were kind of in the whitewash. They were kind of in scramble mode, and it didn't work out. And Kirby Smart even told me yesterday that he felt that maybe that score isn't really indicative of what Ohio State's defense actually is. But Stetson Bennett's been here before. The Georgia receiving corps is as versatile as we've seen in college football in a very long time. And if Ohio State can avoid the big plays, can avoid Stetson Bennett from giving that mic drop in the third or fourth quarter, then they're going to hang in this game for a full 4 quarters.
Now, Barry, you were just talking about UGA. Of course, they are the favorites, favored by about 6 points there. You talked about Stetson Bennett. He's going to be like 35 next week. At least that's what my sources are telling me. But keeping it real here, you look at Georgia. Look, they are the number 1 team there in Atlanta because they had the number 1 pick there, being the top seed there. You look at this matchup. It's a matchup of defense and offense. Georgia, second best scoring defense in the country. Ohio State, second best offense in the country. What's got to give? Give me some keys to a Georgia victory and trying to repeat down there in Atlanta.
Yeah, the coaches and players have been here all week, and the word physicality, I'm kind of sick about hearing it. It seems like every single question is about physicality, but it's exactly what has to happen. I think if Georgia's going to win this game, they have to own the line of scrimmage when Ohio State has the ball. This Ohio State offensive line, 2 All-Americans, Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones, they are no slouch. But then you look at Georgia. You've got a really versatile defensive front led by Jalen Carter. Had a chance to talk to Jalen Carter 2 days ago, and he is, I think, very confident not only in his ability, but the rotation that this Georgia defense is able to operate within. So I think for Georgia, we hear about battle of line of scrimmage all the time, and it's kind of a cliche. I get that, but this is strength versus strength when Ohio State has the ball against one of the best defenses in Georgia that we've seen in a generation. So if Georgia can get pressure on C.J. Stroud, get him off his mark, force Mayan Williams to cut behind the line of scrimmage, then it's all she wrote for the Buckeyes.
All right, these semifinals have had a propensity over time to be blowouts. It is time for your pick, Barrett. Georgia is giving 8. The total is 62.5. A spot in the national championship game on the line. Who you got?
Take Ohio State and the points, but you won't need them because Ohio State's winning this game straight up.
Wow.
I think they're a more complete defense than people realize. I think they needed a break. This is an Ohio State team that I think really from a defensive standpoint had been living on the edge. They got healthy. I think they're going to be able to slow down this Georgia offense enough to make this game played within their style. And Ohio State likes to stretch the field deep. You're going to see C.J. Stroud hit all of his different receivers. This is a receiving core that is comparable to the one that had Chris Olave and that bunch in it. And while Georgia's secondary is phenomenal, it's going to have a hard time slowing this team down. So I'm thinking Ohio State wins this game 30-27. Take the points, but you won't need them. Ohio State's winning this game straight up.
Barrett Sallee bringing it strong.
Coming in hot.
Taking the Buckeyes in an upset. Barrett, thank you so much. Enjoy the day there in Atlanta. Buckeyes in the playoff for a 5th time. They've crashed out in the semifinals twice. Barrett, though, betting on a return to the title game for the Ohio State University.
And let's go ahead and bring in Chip Patterson and also Emory Hunt joining us again. Guys, you just heard Barrett Sallee. He's taking Ohio State in this game. Let's get you guys' thoughts on this. 1 versus 4, Georgia against Ohio State. Really good offense, really good defense. I think Georgia actually has a really good offense as well. Are you guys going and following in the footsteps of Barrett Sallee? We'll start with you, Emory.
Yeah, I'm not, but he has some seeds to success there because what you need to have to beat Georgia or Georgia-style defense is the same thing you needed to beat an Alabama-style defense, and we know they're one and the same because of Kirby Smart. You have to be unafraid to throw directly at those defensive backs. They do not get their heads turned around. They play in phase. They do not have the ability to play the football, and we know they have great receivers, a quartet of guys that can go deep and make plays on the ball. So he's right in that capacity. So I can understand why he went with Ohio State. But the difference for me and why I'm laying these 6 points with Georgia is because this is all about point of attack play. If you can't beat Georgia up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win. Doesn't matter who you have out there at receiver or at quarterback. And we know C.J. Stroud tends to be a little bit hesitant versus pressure. He'll see a lot of it versus Georgia. I like Georgia at the point of attack. I'm laying the points, but I also like the under. I'm thinking 27, maybe 20. Georgia wins. That also helps you cover, but also helps us cash this under as well.
Ooh, some agreement and some disagreement. First of all, let me tell you the most important number. It's 88, because that is the jersey number of Jalen Carter, who is going to be the best player on the field on New Year's Eve right there in the Big Body Benz in Atlanta. Because while Ohio State has future pros at tackle, they have a little bit of a weakness on the interior of the offensive line. And we know that Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, the way that they like to attack teams, this year, it's not about bringing pressure from the edges. It's about disrupting everything at the line of scrimmage, at the middle, and it all starts with Jalen Carter, which brings me to our star-studded quarterback in C.J. Stroud, because when C.J. Stroud has a clean pocket, when C.J. Stroud is in a rhythm, he is one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. He is the best quarterback in the college football playoff. But one area where C.J. Stroud has not been as good as he is in those great situations is when the pocket collapses, when he has to make a play on the run. That's where I'd honestly maybe rather have a Bryce Young, a Max Duggan, a J.J. McCarthy even. But C.J. Stroud, when things are disruptive in front of him, he is not as good. And that is going to make it so much more difficult for this passing game to be in rhythm. I'm going to take the points. I'm going to lay them. And I've got a game script that goes out like this, gentlemen. I think that Georgia takes control early, but then, and I acknowledge this, there is so much firepower there for Ohio State. The Buckeyes will get their points. I'm laying the 6 with Georgia, but I'm going over as long as it's anything under the key number of 63. We're still there right now as we're talking. So I'm going to go Georgia -6. I'm going to go over on the total. Georgia gets in front early. Ohio State kicks in the back door on the total late. Very similar to the kind of game script we saw against LSU in the national championship game, or SEC championship game.
Yeah, good stuff. And speaking of SEC championship game, third appearance at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium down there in Atlanta for UGA this year. Guys, I've got a number for you, 75. That's why it's going to be important for Georgia. They're just 75 miles away from Athens. Yeah. Home crowd down in the ATL. You got to like the SEC. But Chip, Emory, guys, we really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Go ahead and recap the Peach Bowl picks down in Atlanta. The game of the day here, number 4, Ohio State, number 1 at UGA. Dogs favored by a little less than a touchdown. Chip's going with Georgia, and he's taking the over. Emory, he's taking UGA. They say it's great to be a Georgia Bulldog. At least that's what they say in Athens. And how about Barrett Sallee out there on a limb, Russ, taking the Bucks, the Ohio State.
He's got Buckeyes winning outright.
See it all fall out later tonight.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.